Okay, and it looks like we're live. Good morning. Welcome to another podcast. So we had a few months off now of doing these podcasts, just as well, for a couple of reasons. One, we're just incredibly busy as an agency, and secondly, we wanted to take a bit of time and really plan out this podcast and figure out what we're doing with it in order to deliver the maximum value to, I guess, the viewer watching this. And so hopefully you will see a few changes. I'm going to trial a few things and experiment with a few things over the next few weeks. But yeah, you're going to see me back on your screens, bringing actionable marketing tips to you. We're going to aim for daily, but we're maybe thinking we might break it down to 3 times a week. And we're also planning to do a few joint ventures and some cool sort of webinars and live Q&As with some industry experts. Okay, so the first podcast back, what we're going to talk about today is, as the title suggests, is how to hire a marketing agency without the stress. And the reason we're talking about this is, now, before I start this, I don't want this to come across like sour grapes, like we're sort of, client shaming or anything like that. That's not the case at all. We accept our responsibility, across the board with what we do with ourselves and with our clients' marketing. But it was interesting. I was sitting down over the weekend with a few friends of mine who actually own digital agencies, and I've had this conversation hundreds of times with marketing experts across Australia, and that's really what's the difference between clients that get the result and really successful and sort of clients that you work with that don't seem to get there, because the reality is most marketing agencies do the same thing for each client. And look, the secret or the truth is every marketing agency does virtually the same thing. I mean, it's marketing. It's not, there's no sort of I guess, mystical sort of strategy out there that one agency has over the other agency. And a lot of the times it does come down to the old, you do get what you pay for, which is frustrating, I know. But the truth is, once you sort of sit down and realize what marketing is to your business and what you're trying to achieve, then you shouldn't be worried about investing in a marketing agency per se. I think what we're going to cover in this video is why it breaks down a lot of the times, why the perception of what you're going to get from an agency isn't it doesn't correlate with the reality of what most businesses would get from working with a marketing agency. And so just by understanding a few things from the get-go, it'll help you sort of position yourself so when you do make that next agency hire, it will be a long-term and profitable one for everybody involved. So the first thing to understand is, as a business, it's amazing how many business owners out there don't think that marketing is something that needs to be run just absolutely consistently and continuously. It's one of the most, if not the most important parts of your business. And there's no better marketing strategy than time. You're going to have winners, you're going to have losers when it comes to marketing campaigns. But the reality is you need to be consistently in the market and advertising, and nothing beats time. Nothing beats that compounded effect of just continuously being out there, putting your message out there to, your audience. And so there's a real big distinction between results in the first sort of 6 months of working to an agency and then after that fact. Most agencies run pretty close to break even for the first probably 2 to 3 months, if not at loss. And that's because generally when you take on a new client, the front end sort of work that needs to go into setting up your campaign, it's just huge, because most people are coming to an agency with really poor digital infrastructure. Their website's poor, they don't have a list, they don't have a following, or worse still, they've gone and participated in really bad sort of activities like buying likes and buying sort of fans on their Facebook page. And so there's stuff that sometimes you actually have to go and undo before you can even start building their new campaign out, sort of thing. So the first thing that I want to say is that if you go and hire a marketing agency, you need to have a long-term vision. I'm sorry to say there are no quick wins in marketing. Markets are so saturated across every single platform. Do not buy into or believe the absolute BS that people perpetuate about these 7-day, 7-step, 14-step, 21-step programs to, turning your business from $0 to $1 million. And, look, marketers out there, there's a lot of spruiking going on about results, but the truth is you can bend marketing results to look really good regardless of what the actual performance of that is. And so I would suggest that the first one is go into it with your eyes wide open and understand that a marketing relationship is a long-term relationship, and a business is not built in a week or a month or 6 months. It's built over years. And so your marketing campaign is like a house. You're just building the blocks year on year. And then, if you continue that process, eventually you're going to have a really strong foundation and a strong sort of house in a marketing sense to carry you forward. And so, don't go into it blind and think that you're going to get the quick wins. What happens so often, though, is business owners don't think of marketing until they're in trouble. And so when they do finally reach out to a marketing agency, they generally come from a position of desperation. And it probably leads me to one of my other points. Don't lie to your marketing agency. I can't tell you how many times I've had this situation where you sit down with a client, they say that, yep, they're on board, they understand the long-term vision, and then once they sign on the dotted line, you start working with them, and then the truth comes out, and they sort of let you know that, oh, look, here's the facts, we're actually going broke, this is our last resort. Because the truth is, that situation is never going to play out well for anyone. You have to know that you need to be able to commit to an agency for 12 months plus in order to start seeing really strong results from that. Sure, you'll get some quick wins along the journey. Yeah, that's always the goal, and that's what everybody's trying to achieve. You will get your little spikes, your little bumps, but the reality is it all comes through that long-term process of just being out there in the marketplace consistently and doing the right things over and over again. A couple other things I want to sort of touch on to make this sort of whole process successful is, don't go into it without understanding your marketing fundamentals. It still staggers me how many business owners don't know who their target customers are, don't know what the benefit is they actually offer to their customers, don't know what the big objections are that they need to overcome for their customers. They don't have any idea of what their competitors are doing or where they're positioned in the market. A lot of these marketing fundamentals, like, if you understand these, then you'll understand what you're trying to get out of your marketing agency. And because what happens with a lot of businesses is when they go to, and I've had this situation a lot, we'll sit down with a new client and they'll explain to us that their last marketing agency, they did this and that and they weren't good and whatever. But then we'll sort of ask a few questions and break down what they actually ordered. And more often than not, the client is actually in the wrong, in the sense that they've gone to an agency and asked for the wrong product because they read somewhere or they heard somewhere that they needed SEO or they needed Google Ads. And so they actually went and ordered that from the agency. In their mind, they thought that was going to get them the big result, and it just wasn't. And so the agency is generally just delivering on what you've asked them to do. But the fact is, you've not understood what you needed as a business to get the result. And I guess there is some blame there on the agency's fault. I mean, there are different agencies out there. Some agencies will just take your order, they'll just process what it is that you want and deliver on that, and that sort of job done. I guess for the larger agencies, they'll actually sit down with you and work out the plan, help educate you through that process. But just be mindful of that. And so understanding your fundamentals, understanding sort of your basis sort of marketing points, which if you go over to my website and go to the Marketing HQ page, I've got videos there to walk you through all of those marketing fundamentals. And they're not hard. It's just a process of sitting down and doing those. But once you understand those, you might understand more clearly what you're trying to achieve out of your marketing. Because if you're walking into an agency and you're just saying you want more leads, you want ROI, you're a long way off the mark, put it that way. The next one would be to invest in self-education. Like everything in life, if you are just handing the keys to the castle over or the keys to the kingdom over blindly and not willing to understand what's going on or invest time into what's actually happening within your marketing, then look, you're really exposing yourself. And I think this is where a lot of the breakdown comes from hiring marketing agencies, is the fact that business owners just don't understand what's going on in the marketing space, and marketers find it really hard to communicate to business owners, because the truth is, marketing is so complex these days. Like, there are so many moving parts to it and so many nuances that it's just impossible to almost explain to somebody who has zero foundational understanding of digital marketing. And so I would always suggest to my clients, and if you don't know what SEO is, if you don't know what Google Ads are, there's a little thing called Google and a little thing called YouTube. All the answers are there. And so take the time to sit down and just do an hour's work of Googling. Just understand the basics of what you're talking about there, so that when you have a conversation with your marketing agency, you're coming from, I guess, a greater position of strength and understanding, as opposed to sitting there sort of blind and not sure what's going on. Because when you don't know what's going on, you get nervous, you get insecure, and then, like I said, when the results sort of aren't coming initially, you can then make rash decisions that actually hurt you. Because one of the things that hurts businesses to no end is to consistently be jumping from one marketing agency to the next agency to the next. Because every time that you jump agencies, you almost have to reset the entire work that they've done, if not all of it, probably 50% of it. And so you're constantly doing this sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And so I would always suggest that if it's not working with your current agency, communicate with them and figure out what you need to do to make it work. But you're generally better off staying with the agency that you're working with and working on that education, working on sort of the understanding between the two of you. Because again, consistency is the key to marketing. Consistency and time in the market will get you further than any other marketing strategy. So a couple of things that I'll sort of go through, and I'm going to go through this thing that we call, it's like the ROI axis, to just sort of explain a little bit about what I mean with how much is it going to cost. So one thing that all business owners want to know is how fast am I going to get this ROI, and how much is it going to cost to start seeing a profit. I differ a little bit. I mean, it's different for every industry and every business based on competition. But one thing that I will sort of throw out there is there's almost no such thing as bad marketing. I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I know personally here with our marketing, I don't care what costs come in from a marketing perspective, because even a bad campaign out there is still working for me to some degree. It's still getting awareness, and you're never going to win every campaign. But the thing is, if you expect to just go in on a positive ROI, 100% of the time, then it's just not going to work. It's not a case of you're always going to be putting, $1 in here and pulling $2 out there. Sometimes you're going to have to put in sort of $2 or $3, $5 to pull out that $1. But you should be taking that $1 as a win and a sign that it actually works, because like everything in life, you don't just get rewards easily and quickly. I mean, you don't walk into the gym and after 2 months, you've got a shredded six-pack. It takes years to get into shape. And so marketing's the same. You've got to be willing to, I guess, spend a bit, burn a bit, and commit to it, even when it's not working perfectly, with the assumption that you are improving as you go and you're taking your wins and you're compounding those wins. Because at the end of the day, marketing is very much about testing. It's about figuring out what works as much as what doesn't work. It's sort of cutting the things that don't work out and then focusing on the areas that do work, and just constantly building that sort of process out. And through that, that's how you get to running a positive ROI campaign. And so I'll sort of show you the axis that I sort of lean on when it goes to understanding how to get to ROI, how long it's going to take. So if you look at it like this, okay, so you've got sort of time here. So this is going that way, sort of, let's say month 1, month 2, month 3. And so every business has what I call an ROI sort of axis. And so let's say that's here. Okay, so if this is day 1 of working with a marketing agency, this is the kind of tipping point or the inflection point for where you go from just spending money on marketing to actually making consistent ROI. Now, it's not to say that you won't have campaigns before then that'll be winners. Of course you will, but generally what you find is they're quite often offset by the testing and the losers in that early stages, especially as I said, you're building out your campaigns. And the point being this is that this line is essentially, you've got to think of this gap here, or this void, as your commitment to your business. It's like sort of saying that, okay, we can get you the result, or let's say this. If I said to you that you could triple your business, but it's going to cost you sort of 12 months and you have to invest $50,000, most business owners would still go, that's a good deal, I'll take that. Because they're looking at the long-term outcome of staying in the game and able to sort of get to this point of ROI. But the problem is, most business owners think that it's going to be a process to get to the ROI inflection point. It's like this. They think they start here and it's just a straight line up to the top. And look, for some business owners and some businesses out there, that is the case. But what a lot of that depends on is what you bring to the table when you first hire a marketing agency. See, if you're coming to a marketing agency, you've already got a solid website, you've already got good traffic, you've got a mailing list, and all these sort of things set up that you can really leverage, then yes, you can really sort of get results quickly. But typically, if you've got all those things, you're probably not looking for a marketing agency. So as I said before, typically if you're hiring a marketing agency, you're actually coming to the party with very little traffic, poor web design, no lists to speak of. So there's not a lot of things there to leverage. And so therefore this line here, it starts to take a little bit more of a process like this. And so the reason that this is like that is so through this period here, like if you've got, poor website design, you need to get that fixed. If you've got no list, you've got to build your mailing list. You've got to build your retargeting lists. You've got to build your branding, your awareness. I mean, there's so much work that goes into actually building out a marketing campaign that the reality is very few clients will take a trajectory like this, that most marketing agencies will start to go and really kind of plateau to begin with. Like you might have little spikes here. And what you're looking for in that first sort of few months is you're just looking for your small wins. You're looking for signs that, okay, are you generating leads? Yes, you might be generating them for a higher CPA than what your target sort of CPA is, which is quite normal. But then as you move through, you'll start to build that down. You'll start to sort of get to the point where, you're really hitting those key metrics that you set out to do. But generally speaking, this is the process that you should be expecting to go into if you're hiring a marketing agency. So you will get to this point of your ROI inflection point, but you're not going to get there like a rocket ship. And I know it's frustrating because the concept is, hey, I pay the marketing agency, you do the work. But the reality is that there's a lot of elements to your business that probably aren't working as efficiently as you need them. And a marketing agency is never the silver bullet. We're so strict these days on who we actually work with because, we've learned over the years that there are so many sort of, so many things that can derail the relationship between a business and a marketing agency. And at the end of the day, if you don't get to the point of result, then it's pointless actually going through the process. But if you can sort of take a look at this and realize that it's a long-term process, firstly, that you're building your business for the long term. Because if you want to sort of talk about things like SEO or, even outside of SEO, even all the PPC campaigns, there's just a process now of actually getting to a point where it's profitable. And, like with SEO in particular, if you're not prepared to be in the game for 12 months, then you can't expect gains. Nobody out there is ranking you for a strong or a competitive keyword in your area in the first few months, not without putting your business at risk. If you're doing, white hat SEO that's going to set your business up, foundationally for a long time moving forward, then you're going to be looking at a minimum of 6 months, but generally it's going to be around that 12-month mark that you really start to get some leverage and gains. And so that's why with marketing and hiring an agency, I would suggest only hire a marketing agency if you're willing to invest in your business for the long term and you're willing to grow your business and you're looking to take up market share. If you're at a point of sort of desperation or frustration, then I think that you're better off taking every cent that you've got and throwing it at some paid campaigns. Doing your best, learning as much as you can from YouTube, learning as much as you can from Google. But if you're at a point where you've got sort of diminishing resources that you can actually invest in this, then hiring an agency is not going to be your best go, because the fact is agencies, they need to be paid. So obviously you've got staff costs to deliver the actual services. Whereas if you're at a point where you're just really desperate, you need something to work, then you are better off having a crack yourself, spending the time on YouTube, spending the time on Google, learn as much as you can about sort of one particular sort of platform, whether it's Facebook, Google, and then really just driving as much of your resources into the paid campaign as possible, as opposed to trying to hire an agency thinking that they're going to get you there faster, because the reality is the cost is a cost, period. So when you hire an agency, there's still a cost to them and there's still a time frame that they're going to take in order to start seeing positive results. And so it doesn't work if you're looking for the quick win. So that's probably the big takeaway out of this is, if you're going to hire an agency, make sure you understand the big vision of your company, where you want to go long term. Understand that you need to invest in getting there, because if it was easy, everybody would do it, and life just doesn't work that way. What in life can you just go and throw a few $1,000s at and it's going to return you an absolute windfall? It just doesn't work. It's the committed people, the people who understand that it is a process, it's long term, and it's an investment. Marketing's so critical to your business, and yet, as I said, it staggers me how many business owners don't actually have something set up or don't have any sort of marketing structure or systems in place, let alone hiring an agency. So, that's the lesson for today. Just checking my notes here. Yeah, and so just remember, understand your fundamentals, consistency and commitment are the only things that work. Understand your vision. Don't forget to self-educate and communicate with your agency. Try your hardest to understand as much about it as possible, because it'll help you make clearer and better decisions together moving forward. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next podcast.